My town has 2 cemeteries but only one for the living. I grew up in a small, fog-drowned town where the air always smelled faintly of wet earth and decay. The kind of place where secrets don't die, they just get buried a little deeper. Everyone knows about Hollowfield Cemetery, the one you can see from the main road. Its gate is wrought iron, its graves trimmed neatly, its headstones leaning tiredly like old men listening to rain. But the old folks whisper about another one, hidden behind the hills, a second cemetery, one that doesn't appear on any map. They say it was built for those who never stayed buried. The rule was simple: we only visit the one that's meant for the dead. I first heard the stories when I was 10. My grandmother used to sit by the window at night, her voice trembling as she told me about the living graves. People who had been seen standing by their own tombstones, blinking, breathing, whispering through the fog. She said they were the ones who went to the wrong cemetery, the one that calls you by name. It happens at dusk, when the fog gets so thick that it becomes hard to tell where the road ends and the graves begin. If you hear your name then, you're supposed to run and never look back. If you do, the second cemetery will see you. And once it sees you, it never forgets. For years, I thought it was a tale to keep children from wandering too far. But one night, I learned the truth. I was driving home after dark, the mist rolling in like pale smoke. I missed the turn for Hollowfield and ended up on a narrow, cracked road I didn't recognize. My headlights caught the shimmer of iron, a gate half buried in vines. The letters on it were rusted away, but I could still make out the faint words, "Rest beneath, rise anew." I told myself it was just an abandoned graveyard. But when I stepped out of the car, everything went silent. No wind. No crickets. Just the low hum of something alive beneath the soil. The graves weren't like normal ones, they were fresh. Too fresh. Some of them still had footprints beside them, leading away into the dark. Then I noticed something worse. One of the headstones had my last name carved into it. My blood went cold. The date of death wasn't filled in. A sound rose from the ground, like something shifting beneath the dirt, dragging itself upward. I stumbled back toward the car, but my headlights flickered, and the air filled with whispering voices, all calling my name in a tone that was half pleading, half hungry. Hands, pale and trembling, broke through the mud, reaching toward me. I ran, not daring to look back, my feet slipping on the wet road until I made it to the main street. When I turned, the road behind me was gone. The gate. The graves. All swallowed by fog. I tried to tell people what I saw, but the townsfolk just shook their heads and told me I must have dreamt it. Yet when I went to Hollowfield the next morning, I saw something that froze my breath. A new grave had appeared. My name was on it again. Only this time, the date of death was filled in. Tomorrow's date. That night, I couldn't sleep. The fog crept close to my window like it had weight to it. Around midnight, I heard shuffling footsteps outside my house, soft and uneven, like someone learning how to walk again. I peeked through the curtains, and saw myself standing on the lawn, dirt-caked and hollow-eyed, staring back. My reflection smiled before fading into the mist. Now I understand what the old folks meant. Our town has 2 cemeteries, but only one for the living. The other isn't for the dead, it's for those who cross over too soon, who see what they're not supposed to. Those who answer when the fog calls their name. And sometimes, when I walk past Hollowfield, I swear I can hear digging, not from beneath the ground, but above it. Because the second cemetery isn't always in the hills. Sometimes, it moves closer. Sometimes, it opens where you stand. And when it does, the only difference between the living and the dead is how long it takes before the ground pulls you under. The ground beneath the living cemetery began to breathe. That's the only way I can describe it, a slow, rhythmic rise and fall, as though the soil itself was drawing in air from some vast, hollow lung beneath the earth. The tombstones trembled like teeth in old gums, and the air turned wet and heavy, thick with the smell of rotten iron. People used to say the second cemetery, the one for the living, was symbolic, a reminder of mortality. But I've seen it move. I've watched the names on the gravestones shift when no one was looking. I once saw my own name carved faintly into one, not finished, just waiting for someone to complete the date. The first time I realized something was wrong was the night my friend Daniel disappeared. He dared me to meet him there after midnight, said he'd prove it was all just small-town superstition. We met under the willow tree near the center, where the ground dipped slightly, soft from years of unmarked burials. We brought flashlights and nervous laughter, but both died out when we noticed the fog crawling along the ground, not drifting like normal mist, but coiling, twisting, reaching. Daniel went ahead, mocking the whispers we heard. Then his light flickered, and he stopped moving. I called his name again and again, but all that answered was a voice that sounded exactly like mine, whispering from the dark, "Come closer." By the time I ran, I could hear footsteps matching mine, not behind me, but beneath me. Each stride I took echoed from the soil below, faster and heavier, like something was racing me back to the gate. I fell once, my hands sinking into the mud that felt too warm, too soft, as if gripping the skin of something alive. When I finally crawled out of that place, Daniel's flashlight lay at the entrance, still on, but the glass smeared from inside, as though someone had pressed their face against it, screaming silently. He was never found. The next morning, there was a new headstone in the cemetery. No name, just a blank slab. And the ground in front of it still looked freshly turned. Now, years later, the cemetery has grown. Not in size, but in hunger. It waits quietly during the day, a peaceful field of stone and silence. But at night, you can feel it stretching. Every shadow cast by the moon seems longer, almost liquid, as if the darkness itself is searching for someone new. Those who visit after dusk often say they hear a heartbeat when they walk between the graves, slow, patient, waiting for a rhythm to match it. And when it finds a living pulse nearby, the soil trembles, the fog thickens, and another empty stone appears by morning. The townspeople pretend nothing's wrong. They keep burying their dead in the old cemetery, and they avoid the other one, as if not acknowledging it will make it fade. But it doesn't fade. The second cemetery grows stronger with every denial, every whispered prayer that it's not real. Because the living feed it, not with bodies, but with fear. And once it marks you, once it whispers your name through the fog, you start to change. Your reflection grows paler. Your breath becomes colder. And one night, when you lie down to sleep, you wake up standing under that willow tree, barefoot on soft, breathing ground. No one talks about it openly anymore, but we all feel it. The weight of unseen eyes when the wind passes through the gravestones. The faint sound of shovels at night, digging from beneath instead of above. And sometimes, just before dawn, I hear Daniel's voice from far below the earth, still calling my name, not to scare me, but to warn me. Because the cemetery for the living is never full. It just waits patiently for its next breath, its next heartbeat, its next name to carve into stone. And if you listen long enough in the silence, you'll hear it, too, the sound of the ground whispering, "You're already home." Sometimes I wonder if the cemetery has already claimed me. There are nights when I wake up with dirt under my fingernails, the faint scent of moss and decay on my pillow. I tell myself it's just dreams, the kind you carry from childhood, the kind that sink deep into your bones and wait. But dreams shouldn't leave footprints by your window, or the faint echo of your own voice calling from outside at 3 a.m. Last week, I heard knocking beneath my floorboards, slow, deliberate, and rhythmic, like someone gently tapping from under the foundation. I tried to ignore it, tried to drown it out with music, but every song warped, the static rising and falling like breath. And in that static, the whisper came again, "You're already home." The town pretends everything is normal, but it isn't. People don't move away anymore. They vanish. Whole families one night just gone. The houses remain, doors open, dinner still on the tables, but no one inside. And every time it happens, a new row of gravestones appears in the living cemetery, always blank, always waiting. The local pastor says it's a curse, that the dead envy the living and pull them beneath the soil. But I think it's worse than that. I think the ground isn't taking us out of hate or revenge, it's calling us back. Like we were never really meant to leave it in the first place. A few months ago, I decided to dig near the willow tree, the same spot where Daniel disappeared. The earth there was soft, almost pulsing. Every shovelful released a strange warmth, and the deeper I went, the louder the heartbeat became, a deep, steady thrum that I could feel in my ribs. Then the shovel hit something hollow. I cleared away the dirt, expecting wood, maybe a coffin. But it wasn't wood. It was skin. Stretched, pale, and smooth, like the surface of a drum. When I touched it, it twitched. And then a hand burst through, gripping my wrist with impossible strength. I screamed, tried to pull away, but another hand emerged, then another, and another, until they surrounded me, grasping, clawing, dragging. I fell forward, my face inches from the ground, and saw eyes, hundreds of them, staring up through the soil, open and alive. They blinked in perfect unison, watching me, pleading or warning, I couldn't tell which. I ran after that, but something followed me home. The fog doesn't stay near the cemetery anymore. It seeps through my door at night, thick and low, curling along the floorboards like it's searching for a place to rest. Sometimes it gathers near the mirror in my hallway, And for a split second, I see Daniel's reflection beside mine, smiling faintly, dirt streaking his face. He doesn't speak. He just raises a finger to his lips, a silent warning. But behind him, the fog shifts, and I see figures moving inside it, their outlines twisted and half-formed, like they're still becoming solid. They're not ghosts. They're not memories. They're the ones who've been claimed, waiting for me to stop running. I tried leaving the island once. I packed what I could and drove until the road disappeared into mist. No matter which way I turned, every sign led me back here. The air grew colder, the trees leaned closer, and the fog thickened until I couldn't tell if I was still moving or if the world was circling me instead. When I finally stopped, my headlights cut through the mist, and there it was again, the cemetery gate, open and waiting. The willow tree stood in the distance, its branches swaying like arms beckoning me forward. On the nearest gravestone, a name had appeared where there had been none before. Mine. Complete this time. Now I don't bother locking the doors. The whispers are inside the walls anyway, humming through the pipes, breathing through the vents. The heartbeat under the ground has matched mine perfectly. I feel it even now, steady and calm, like a lullaby. I know what it wants, and maybe it's right. Maybe fighting it is pointless. The earth doesn't steal, it reclaims. It doesn't bury, it embraces. I can hear the soil shifting beneath my floorboards as I write this, soft and patient. It's calling me home again, the way it calls everyone eventually. The wind outside has stopped. The night is still. And in that silence, I can finally hear it clearly, the voice beneath the ground, warm and familiar, whispering my name. The walls tremble, the floor creaks, and I can feel the air thickening with fog. I don't think I'll resist this time. I'm tired of running. The soil is breathing faster now, waiting for me to answer. Maybe, when I step outside, Daniel will be there, smiling like before. Maybe the others will, too. The ground is opening. The whispers are louder. And I understand it now, the living cemetery was never meant to scare us. It was meant to remind us where we belong. Because sooner or later, we all return to the same earth. And as I take my last breath before the fog swallows me, I hear the ground sigh softly, almost lovingly. Welcome home.